kes kematian ke-46 iaitu kes ke-2,909.
ACL, make it rain.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 1 and we will discuss about the impact of COVID-19 to Malaysia economy and their implication. My name is Irene Natasha binti Muhammad Halmi from MBA 111 5B and I will start the presentation with the introduction. For introduction, COVID-19 has decimated the Malaysian economy. In Malaysia, there are two types of economic damage. The first is external, caused by the coronavirus impact elsewhere, and the second is local, caused mostly by prior country-wide mobility restrictions. The little viral disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 is currently recognized as coronavirus disease 2019, which is COVID-19. COVID-19 target the respiratory tract, producing severe infection with dyspnea and, in certain cases, low blood oxygen saturation. COVID-19 has the ability to cause a patient serious breathing problem as well as harm to many humans' organs. The main external channel through which the COVID-19 shock is transmitted is through trade link, Chan 2020b. Global trade restrictions have reduced global demand for Malaysian export, which were already under pressure in 2018 and 2019 due to increased trade uncertainty caused by the US-China trade war. The domestic economy is the second source of economic shock. While movement restrictions were necessary to deal with the coronavirus outbreak in Malaysia, they came at a high economic cost. The forced closure of businesses and services, as well as movement restriction, has devastated consumption and investment, with far-reaching consequences for both supply and demand.
Next, we will go to the literature review. The COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak in Malaysia has had a disastrous effect on the country's economy. Trade ties are the primary external avenue of transmissions. Global lockdown measures have decreased demand for Malaysia's product. The fact that Malaysia has one of the highest levels of trade exposure made this situation worse. In 2020, Malaysia's economy shrank 70.1% year-over-year, the worst decline since the years following the Asian financial crisis in 1998. A V-shaped rebound is far less likely due to low global energy costs, damp demand from the main economies, and a predicted gradual recovery in global commerce. Since the beginning of the year to November 2020, the Malaysian government has set aside an estimate RM305 billion in fiscal and non-quasi-fiscal measures to address the COVID-19 crisis. The real fiscal measures, however, only total roughly RM55 billion or 3.8% of GDP. By enhancing social safety net programs and raising government investment, Malaysia can combat the COVID-19 crisis unexpected shocks. Increasing administrative effectiveness and lowering targeting costs will be achieved by lowering eligibility and requirements and working to combine several small social assistance programs into fewer or larger ones.
There are four theories that will be discussed, which are theory of employment, theory of general price level, theory of international trade, and theory of money.
The effects of COVID-19 on Malaysia's economy can be seen in the country's high rate of unemployment and the Malaysian ringgit's depreciation against the US dollar. Malaysia's unemployment rate in 2019 is 3.3%, which translates to more than 500,000 unemployed people. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on Malaysia's economy. This can be demonstrated by comparing Malaysia's unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is 3.2% in January 2020, but it will continue to rise until May 2020 when it will reach 5.3%. S&P stated that the government policy had an impact on the country's inflation. While energy price inflation remains high in general, this is not the case in Malaysia and Indonesia. They also said that because of the two economies are net energy exporters, they are not passing on some of the increases in energy commodity cost to consumers. Malaysia's inflation is expected to rise to 2.9% in 2022, 2.2% in 2023, and 2.3% in 2024 and 2025, from 2.5% in 2021. Inflationary pressures have prompted central banks in Australia, India, Malaysia, and the Philippines to join others in the beginning to normalize monetary policy. The foreign exchange rate can be used to determine the relative level of economic health. This is because the foreign exchange rate has a significant impact on a country's level of trade. Malaysia's March 2019 exchange rate is 4.08 ringgit per USD, and it has depreciated to 4.26 ringgit per USD in July 2020. Weaker exchange rates will lead to cost-push inflation as the cost of imported raw materials rises. This will have an impact on almost all sectors in Malaysia, particularly the manufacturing sector, because the majority of machinery is imported from China and Japan. Weakening currencies reduce Malaysian ringgit purchasing power by requiring more Malaysian ringgit to be exchanged for US dollars. Consumer spending is important in the economy because it can determine the health of the economy. If consumers do not spend their money in the market, the cash flow will become less fluid. It means that small and medium-sized enterprises and businesses will be unprofitable as a result of the market's low demand for goods and services. If there are both demand and supplies in the market, cash flows will become more fluid. Market demand and supply are inextricably linked, and both parties are mutually dependent. This will assist Malaysia in overcoming its economic crisis.
Next, the data of COVID-19 impact on Malaysia's gross domestic product. Malaysia's economy shrank in the fourth quarter of 2020, resulting in worse contraction in GDP than the government had predicted.
Department of Statistics Malaysia Chief Uzair Mahidin said that Malaysia's fourth quarter GDP fell by 3.4%, bigger than the 2.7% decline in the third quarter. Overall, GDP fell by 5.6%, the largest drop since the Asian financial crisis in 1998. For 2022, Bank Negara Malaysia has forecast Malaysia's gross domestic GDP growth to be in range of 5.3% to 6.3%, with Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz saying it may exceed the forecast following stronger than expected growth in the second quarter. Malaysia's strong GDP growth performance of 6.9% in the first half of 2020 is expected to be sustained in the second half of the year, backed by an increase in private consumption and business activities coming out of pandemic.
Next, the data of COVID-19 impact on employment rate.
Malaysia's labour market bore the brunt of the MCO implementation, with unemployment reaching 5% in April 2020, the highest level since 1990.
According to Bank Islam Malaysia BHD Chief Economist Dr. Afzalizam Abdul Rashid, the unemployment rate should fall in the coming months as the economy gradually reopened after the implementation of the conditional MCO on May 4, 2020 and the recovery MCO on June 10, 2020.
According to a statement issued on June 15, 2020 by the Statistics Department, the number of unemployed people increased 48.8% year-on-year to 778,800 in April. The labour force increased by 0.6% or 99,100 people to 15.71 million in April 2020, the slowest growth since September 2014. Concurrently, the working population fell by 156,400 people, or negative 1.0% year-on-year to 14.93 million. According to the department, the most affected industries were manufacturing and services, specifically accommodation and food and beverage, arts, entertainment and recreation, and other services such as beauty centres and salons.
Hello and Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Sharifan Rafika binti Sheikh Zainal.
The Malaysian government implemented a strict lockdown known as MCO 1.0, which halted all non-essential commercial operation as well as export production, which harmed SME, small and medium businesses. Manufacturers that contribute to Malaysia's export income were forced to shut operation as a result of the 2 months lockout, resulting in 8.3% contraction compared to a negative 1.7% growth in 2019. According to Tylers University News, Malaysia's total economic losses during MCO 1.0 totaled 2.4 billion ringgit per day across all industries. Malaysia's economy suffered the most during the first MCO implementation, falling to negative 17.2% in the second quarter of 2020. Malaysia's total GDP growth for 2020 is expected to be negative 5.6% compared to 4.4% in 2019. Malaysia's economy contracted by 5.6% in 2020, the most since the Asian financial crisis of 1998. Furthermore, following an increase in infection cases following MCO 1.0, Malaysia enacted several less restrictive MCO, including RMCO and CMCO, before introducing a more restrictive one in January 2021. Although the restrictions under this MCO were not as severe as those in the last MCO, Malaysia nevertheless lost approximately 600 million ringgit each day as a result of these restrictions.
Furthermore, global lockdown measure has decreased demand for Malaysia's product. By enhancing social safety net programs and raising government investment, Malaysia can combat the COVID-19 crisis unexpected shock. On the other hand, not only decrease in demand for Malaysia's product, but also in domestic tourism in Malaysia continue to decline in terms of visitor arrivals and tourism expenditure in 2021 as a result of COVID-19 lockdown and interstate border restrictions.